5 pillars of Islam. A declaration of faith. There is only one God. Prayer, fasting, zakah, hajj. God has created all human beings equal. As we accept differences amongst brothers within our own families, why can't we accept differences among brothers in humanity in our own points of view about life?
Do you know what Islam is? It's a way of life for all. It is taught in the Quran for big and small. Islam is a way of life, a complete way.
Alhamdulillah, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him with all His beautiful names. I greet you all with the Islamic greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May peace and blessings of the Almighty God, Allah, be upon all of you all. We have a topic, building bridges between Hindus, Christians and Muslims. So this is going to be a more of an interactive session on Q&A. And this question answers are allowed only for the brothers and sisters of other faiths. This is a purely an exclusive session for them. We have Dr. Bilal Phillips. So we'll straight away go on to this session. So I request Dr. Bilal Phillips to just introduce Islam briefly and start the question and answers.
I would first, after praising God and asking that His peace and blessings be on all of His prophets, like to welcome all of our non-Muslim guests here, and I appreciate your willingness to come and share your ideas with us, and that's what we're here for, to help you to understand why we do or why we say the things that we say as Muslims, and to improve relations with peoples of other faiths, because ultimately we are all trying to do what is good. We are all in favor of what is beneficial for the welfare of our communities, our societies. So we really should not be at odds with each other. We shouldn't have misunderstandings, especially in these days where communication, lines of communication are readily available. So that's what we are here to share with you. That Islam, if we look at its most basic foundations, what are known as the 5 pillars of Islam, that in one way or another, I'm sure you would all agree that they represent good principles for life. Whether it is the first of the pillars, which is a declaration of faith, that one be open with one's faith, not to hide it, to pretend, but to be real. This is what I believe, this is who I am. That is the first step for the Muslim. For a person to be a Muslim, he or she should openly declare their faith. Faith that there is only one God, which virtually all societies in the world agree that there really is only one God. But how that God is perceived is where we find differences of understandings, etc. But the idea that there's ultimately one supreme being who governs all, this is shared by all societies around the world. And for the believing people, we are the majority. Those who claim that there is no supreme being, they are in fact a small, strange, abnormal minority. This is reality. I know those of you who are visiting who may be atheists might say, why would you want to say that? Well, this is what history shows us. Wherever we go in the world, whatever age, whatever society, whatever civilization, backwards, developed, underdeveloped, people believe in God. A minority you find around the world who say there is no God. So as believers, this is a common ground that we should share and help those who have lost their way to the state where they don't recognize that there is a God, help them to find their way back. And of course, for a Muslim, there is added to the basic declaration of faith that there is only one God, that the one who informed us of that, the messenger of God known as Muhammad ibn Abdullah, who appeared, was born in the 6th century after the time of Christ, he conveyed that message, and he not only conveyed it in word, but he also conveyed it in deed. So a Muslim, when he or she declares their faith, they not only recognize the unity of God, that there is one God, ultimate God, but also that the messenger who brought this message is to be followed, meaning he represents the guide in life. He is the example of how we should live our lives. That's the first pillar of Islam. And I'm sure all religions have comparable guides. People depend on, commit themselves to believing that they are the example for them. So I'm sure any person who believes in God would say, yes, that is a reasonable principle. We should have guides. We should have somebody to show us how to live a good, righteous, pious, beneficial life. The second pillar of Islam, the prayer, praying 5 times a day. But some people might say, well, that's a lot. You know, how about once a week or a couple of times a week? That may be a little more. Well, of course, it's a choice. If a person commits himself or herself to pray 5 times a day, in other words, trying to communicate with God 5 times a day, trying to remember God 5 times a day, we say the more the merrier. Really, nothing bad about that. Even if you as an individual may personally feel it's a bit too much for you, but still, the idea if somebody wanted to do that's a good thing. Because the more we remember God, the better people we will be. So, again, the second pillar of Islam, 5 times daily prayer. No believer in God would say, hey, that's not good. No. The third pillar, fasting. Fasting in the month of Ramadan. 1 month every year, Muslims are required to fast for 30 days, daylight hours. And fasting is something instituted in virtually every religion. Even if people today don't do it, we go back into the scriptures, you will find the people of the past did. So if we're not doing it and they did it, it means somehow we slipped off the path a bit. We need to get back on the path. Because fasting was prescribed by God because it is good for human beings, whether physically or spiritually. And of course, the spiritual concerns are the greatest. Fasting, which teaches self-restraint, control of one's basic desires, so that throughout the rest of the year, when we're not fasting, the lessons learned in fasting should be applied. And of course, all of what we're talking about here are ideal principles that people should strive for. Now, I know you might say, but I know some Muslims who fast every year and they don't seem to be very restrained. They don't manage to restrain themselves at all. Well, probably because they're not fasting as they were supposed to fast. And because there are principles and rules for fasting. There is the letter of the law. You don't eat or drink or have sexual relations between dawn and sunset. That's the letter. But there's also spirit, where the Prophet said that the person who doesn't give up backbiting, telling lies, cursing, God has no reward for their fast. So a person may go through the physical requirements, but the spiritual requirements they're not taken care of. So naturally, the fast doesn't have the required impact on the individual. The fourth pillar of Islam is zakah, or charity, which is an obligation on every member of the community who has surplus wealth. Everyone who has surplus wealth above a minimum is required to give 2.5% of it to the poor. Not to the church, the temple, or the mosque, or to the imam or the priest, but to the poor. Recirculating some of our surplus with the needy members of the society and the community. And again, anyone who believes in God, even if you didn't believe in God, you would say, that's a good thing. That's beneficial. It is helpful. And the last of the pillars, the one which might be a little different, that of the pilgrimage, Hajj.
Islam is a way of life.
The life of this world is filled with ups and downs. Sometimes we win, and sometimes we lose. In order to remain unfazed through thick and thin, put your trust in Allah and join me on Fire of Faith.
Watch Dr. Bilal Phillips in Fire of Faith every Friday at 3 p.m. Saudi Arabia and 4 p.m. UAE on Peace TV.
Confusion, conflict, lack of values, lack of genuine faith, living life unaware. Religions manipulated, misunderstood, religious scriptures altered and modified for petty gain. In all this, Billy, I will strive to expose the truth. Because it's your right to know and my duty to tell the truth.
Watch Dr. Zakir Naik in Truth Exposed every Friday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Saudi Arabia and 10 p.m. UAE on Peace TV. Peace TV presents 100 million viewers, more than 30 dynamic dyes, their aim,
if indeed you love Allah, to live like Muslims.
So don't drop the baton.
their vision,
Something about Iman, something about faith.
May Allah save us from the hellfire. Ask Allah for protection and peace.
their mission,
Oh Allah, I turn to you and you alone.
Stand up and passionately strive.
Do what you can to spread the word of Islam.
We are a community that stands up for justice.
establishing justice and peace.
I welcome all of you with the Islamic greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Meet the personalities lighting the new light to remove falsehood and to prevail the truth in Peacemakers, next on Peace TV.
Islam is a way of life.
Hajj, the fifth pillar of Islam, where Muslims once every year gather, some 3 million strong. It is a requirement once in a lifetime for those who are able. Those who are not are required to desire it. And what it represents is a celebration of the diversity of humankind and the greatness of God. Because as a Muslim here, Muslims of India are taught that God has created all human beings equal. Doesn't matter what so-called race they belong to, caste or position in society, etc., they are really all equal and one. But the reality of it isn't experienced until a person goes to Hajj. When a person goes to Hajj, goes to Mecca, he meets there or she meets there people from all parts of the world. And the universality of that message of the oneness of humankind comes alive on a scale which is unimaginable, except for those who actually get there and see it. It's very difficult even to describe. But it's a celebration of that variety and of the fact that there is one God that brought them there, who created them and brought them there. And it is also many of the rites performed there, rites of worship, are focused on Prophet Abraham and his willingness to sacrifice his own son at the command of God. Muslims accept Prophet Abraham as one of the prophets of God, and we as Muslims are required to believe that God sent prophets everywhere in the world, over 124,000 prophets. Prophets were sent everywhere. Well, of those that have remained, those that we know of, Prophet Abraham is one who is spoken about quite often in the Quran, and his sacrifice, his willingness to sacrifice his son, is commemorated in the rites of Hajj itself. So the idea of people gathering to celebrate the unity of humankind and the oneness of God, and the need for human beings to be prepared to sacrifice themselves for the sake of God, meaning for the sake of what is good and what is right. We should be prepared to sacrifice anything which God has given us, because whatever we have belongs to God. Then again, even though the practice of pilgrimage may not be found in some religions, the concept itself is, again, a universal concept. So the basic pillars of Islam are pillars which are universally recognized, universally accepted. And that is what we have come to share here with you this afternoon. We'd like to share it with you, and any misunderstandings or anything which is not clear of these pillars or our practices, we are here to clarify them for you. And with that, I think now we will turn over the floor to you to share any issues or any points that you'd like clarified. And please do not feel shy. Know that whatever you say, we will take it in the spirit of understanding and an attempt to get a clear understanding, a better understanding, and not one that you're trying to attack us or one that you're trying to hurt our feelings. So don't be shy to ask any question. Don't feel that any question is too embarrassing or whatever. This is our welcome to you to share with us anything you have. Thank you very much for being here, and we hope that you will share. Please.
My name is Professor Selvarajan from Madras University. I received invitation from you. Thank you, sir. Yeah, he has given a beautiful account of the 5 pillars of the Islam. And because your Islam is in a different language, many people are not aware of it. Now I had a very good perception of what Islam and 5 pillars. Sir, our President Abdul Kalam has been telling that we must have a vision of universal brotherhood and a global family.
I think you must have heard of our President Abdul Kalam. But when we go to airport or when we get into flight, we are always suspecting everyone and searching all suitcases, everything. Life is full of tension. When do you think this global family would come up? Thank you.
Well, I think that the global family will only come when we are able to understand each other on the most basic levels. If we are unable to understand each other, if there are tensions amongst us between ourselves and our neighbors, you know, our communities from state to state or whatever, you know, we have not established that communication, those open lines of communication on the most basic levels, then we cannot expect it to appear on the higher levels. You know, perhaps maybe we're thinking from the top down, but we need to think from the bottom up. So we need more and more gatherings of this type, you know, shared by various communities where we can share our beliefs with each other and come to mutual understandings and to work out whatever problems and misunderstandings exist amongst us. Because truly we are one humanity, we are from the same origin, and as we accept differences amongst brothers within our own families, why can't we accept differences among brothers in humanity in our own points of view about life?
Dr. Rajan, I am a scientist from the Ministry of Agriculture, and I am also a member from the International Association of Lions Clubs, wherein I have participated in the international conference in Denver, Colorado, USA last year. And I am also the World Constitution World Parliament member that was constituted in Virginia University. And now I have one question. God is one. We represent different religions for worship. We human beings representing from various religions for worship. And why we embrace Islam? Kindly enlighten this point.
As far as Muslims believe, and now we're talking about sharing belief, right? Muslims believe, yes, that there is only one God. There is only one human race. Even though we've been told there is a variety of races, no, there's just one. And therefore, the need of human beings to worship God, to live in accordance with God's will, that need is fulfilled through God revealing one religion. Because human beings don't have different needs in that sense. We all have the same emotions, the same psychology. Our organization of societies may differ because of technology and things, but basically it's the same. We have a family structure, we have communities, we have states, wherever you go. In history, no matter how far back you go in time, you know, it is the same situation. Human beings have not changed. So we believe that when God created the first two human beings, Adam and Eve, He taught them, He informed them of how He wanted them to live. That we call religion. How He wanted them to live, because He gave them guidelines in terms of how they should relate between themselves, interpersonal relationships, how they should relate to the world around them, which God has provided for them, and how they should relate to God. That religion is not restricted to just how you relate to God, but how you also relate to each other, how do you deal with the environment around you. So religion, the religion of God, was taught to Adam and Eve, the first two human beings. First two human beings who Allah or God created, they were taught the religion of God. As time passed, people multiplied, people strayed away from that original religion, made changes, corrupted, added. And God sent messengers, prophets, to bring people back to that original religion. And as people spread to different parts of the world, of course, the prophets were sent to the different parts of the world, always calling them back to that original religion. Islam holds, as Muslims claim, that that original religion was Islam. That Islam itself means submission to the will of the Creator, sustainer of this world, the one God, who in Arabic his name is Allah. That one God who is not material of the creation, but the Creator himself. So submission to the will of God, meaning submission to the commandments and instructions of God, that is what Adam and Eve were told to do. And this is what describes that final revelation of that same religion according to the teachings of Islam. So we believe, really, yes, there should be one religion. But human beings are free to make their own choices. Human beings are free to choose for themselves what they feel is best for themselves. And in the end, they will be accountable to God for their choices. That is the sum of our belief with regards to that.
The Prophet